Hey, welcome to Aaron's Heart. My name is Darby and I'll be your bartender. Today is a cocktail that I have been waiting for a very long time to do because of one ingredient, the lion's tail. All right, so the lion's tail. There's some convoluted history with this thing. There's some that we know is good and some that we know is most likely garbage. But the known good information is it first appeared in print, at very least, in 1937 in the book. Well, the book was first published in 1937. There may have been recipe cards and things floating around before then, but it first appeared in print in 1937 in the Cafe Royale cocktail book. They think that this was a Prohibition era cocktail, and the reason for that is because, and I'm going to talk about this, I have another Prohibition era cocktail coming up very soon that I'm super excited to do. It's one of my all-time favorites. But they think that this is a Prohibition era cocktail simply because of the combination of ingredients. Obviously, during Prohibition in the United States, we were unable to legally produce or legally imbibe in liquor or alcohol, right? So, in the 1920s during Prohibition, they were making some, the classic bathtub gin we've all heard about. Things like that, things like really, really second-rate whiskeys and bourbons. And they were covering up bad flavoring or bad ingredients, not high-quality ingredients, with things that were very potent in flavor. And one of those things is Allspice Dram, which is in this cocktail today. Now, a lot of times we know Allspice Dram from the tiki world. It's very popular in tiki cocktails. And this is an interesting cocktail, the lion's tail is, because it borderlines on what we now would consider a tiki cocktail, right? It's not quite. It has a lot of those classic components, but it's very tiki influenced in retrospect, right? So the tiki era was a little later on, the 50s and 60s, where this was obviously much earlier than that. Now, this pretty much fell completely out of the known realm, right? After about 1937 was its last known printing in a major way. And then it kind of fell off the face of the earth. And part of the reason for that is the lack and availability of Allspice Dram. Now that all changed, right? It pretty much gone. Like 1980s, pretty much gone. That all changed in 2008. 2008, the Australian company, I believe it is, St. Elizabeth, they started producing and importing back to the United States and Canada their St. Elizabeth Allspice Dram, also known as pimento dram. It comes from the pimento tree. It's the same thing. If you hear pimento dram and Allspice Dram, they're essentially interchangeable, okay? Now, it is still kind of a specialty thing, right? Even now in the modern day, it's Allspice Dram is kind of specialized. You're not going to find it at your everyday liquor store, all right? But it is a cornerstone of several cocktails, but you can make it at home. It's about a 2-week process to do it, or you can, slapdash a quick on-hand remedy, and I'll have all that pinned down I'll pin a comment at the top of this to tell you how to make a slapdash quick Allspice Dram. It's not as good as real Allspice Dram. It's not as good as homemade Allspice Dram, but it will work. All right. Yeah, anyway, that was a whole tangent. Sorry. The Lion's Tail kind of had a resurgence, right? A 2000, that early 2010s era, right? When the cocktail world kind of re-exploded and we were veering away from beer and wine and much more into cocktails, that renaissance, right? In 2008, St. Elizabeth as a company started importing Allspice Dram. And then in 2008, 2009, I couldn't find an exact printing date, but Ted Hayes, I believe is how you say his name. I'll have it somewhere right up here. I believe it's Ted Hayes, had released a book in, I believe, 2009 called Vintage Spirits and Forgotten Cocktails. And a lot of these kind of wacky, off the wall, totally like lost and forgotten, a lot of Prohibition era cocktails had their day in the sun again, right? They had a resurgence because they are interesting. And a lot of times they use flavors that are very interesting. And there's, you know, the Vintage Spirits and Forgotten Cocktails book has a kind of rebalanced version of it, but I'm using the original recipe, which I think is delicious. The rebalance is also very good. It's just not as good in my opinion, but we do have the original recipe today, and that's what I'll be using. So for this, let's go through our ingredients real quick. You're going to need a bourbon. I'm using this Navigator bourbon. This is a straight bourbon whiskey finished in Navigator red wine barrels. I like this. It has a very interesting kind of sweet afternote, which will play very nicely, I think, in this. I'm really a fan of these Navigator products. I'm not sponsored by Navigator or anything, unless you want to hit me up, Navigator. But I really like them. I buy them purely based on their bottle because I think their labeling is second to none. It's beautiful. I have their gin. Their gin is phenomenal. I bought this kind of on a whim. It was on sale at my local liquor store that I really like. So we're going to be using that. It's got a very interesting, that red wine flavor does come through at the very end. It has a very clean, crisp, tart, sweet finish. You will need our lime juice. This is interesting, right? Lime juice. Normally we would use lemon juice with whiskey, with bourbon, things like that. But this uses lime juice, and I think that it's good reason to use it. You'll need Angostura bitters, of course, because everything needs Angostura bitters. Our Demerara, this is a 2-to-1, right? 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. Very simple to make. I've talked about this many times before, but quick rundown is Demerara sugar, which looks, hold on, I have the box here somewhere. It comes in boxes like this, right? Sugar in the raw, turbinado cane sugar. Turbinado and Demerara are the same thing. Essentially, they just have a different name. 2 parts that, 1 part water. Make however much or little you want. I make about, I don't know, that's about a cup, half a cup, something like that at a time. I can't even remember. And then some homemade Allspice Dram. If you can get St. Elizabeth, if you can find it, if you happen to stumble across it, snag it up, because it's considerably easier to do than this. I made a very, very small batch because I don't need a lot of it, all right? I'm gonna make this cocktail for the video and probably another one for myself after I drink the first one. And that's about all I'll make for a little while until I can either order or I find some St. Elizabeth to keep on the shelf. So this has such a wonderful smell. Allspice Dram, if you don't know, is like this baking spice and rum and there's a bunch of stuff in it. Cinnamon and baking spice and allspice and rum. I'm trying to remember what all. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff in it. So it's a crazy recipe that making yourself is very doable, but it's time consuming. So if you find it, I recommend buying it. You'll need also a shaker because this is a shaking cocktail because we have juice in it. So let's go ahead and put this bad boy together, all right? So we're gonna start off with our 2 ounces of bourbon. This is kind of like a whiskey sour without like the egg in it, right? or what would be considered a regular whiskey sour to a lot of folks. 2 ounces, and I spilled that everywhere, so we'll just do a little extra. 2 ounces of our whiskey. We're gonna need a half an ounce of our lime juice, and we're gonna need half an ounce, and I promise you, you do not need more than half an ounce of your Allspice Dram, whether it be store-bought or homemade. You really truly do not need any more than half an ounce. It's very, very potent. 2 dashes of Angostura bitters, and this is the kind of the kicker. You only need a bar spoon, right? If you want this to be sweeter, you could sweeten it more, but I really like how kind of tart and baking spice it comes out as just a bar spoon worth of our Demerara simple syrup. You could, if you don't want to make Demerara simple syrup, you could absolutely use regular simple syrup. Probably if you do that, I would go with regular 1-to-1 ratio plain simple syrup. Okay, you probably don't need to go full bore 2-to-1 with that. It's not really necessary. All right, so we're gonna get some ice cracked into our shaker here. My ice is not wanting to crack very well today. There we go. All right, perfect. Let's shake this up. While we shake this, I'll get another ice cube. Pour my cocktail glass. Now you could absolutely, there we go. You could absolutely serve this up in a chilled coupe, in a chilled rocks glass, whatever you have available, you could use. I like serving this over a big chunk of ice. I think it looks pretty, and I think it kind of lengthens the evolution of the cocktail itself. I just like having that extra there. All right, let's do this the smart way. Get out your peeler, and we'll take a nice peel of orange. Look at that, I have orange today. I have garnishes. What is this madness? It's like I prepped for this for the last 2 months. All right, express that right over the top, and then I like to leave mine where I've pinched it. I like to just leave that in a spear, give it just a little twist so it stays together, and drop it in like you would drop in a straw. So, pull up my sleeves here, otherwise I'm gonna get them dirty. It's interesting, it's kind of a pinkish hue. Oh, it smells phenomenal. It smells like lime juice. It smells like baking spice. It smells like the Allspice Dram. And then it also smells like bourbon, right? Oh, the flavor is out of this world. It's tart right up front, right? It gives you, just like a whiskey sour, right? You get that sour tart, but it heats you up the whole way down. The Navigator bourbon with that red wine cask finish is so just hinting at sweet enough, and it's still doing stuff, right? Because now that I've fully swallowed and my mouth is completely back to square one, I'm getting another hint, and there's cinnamon, and there's that allspice, and almost like an apple pie thing going on, right? Like that smell that comes off an apple pie. Second time around. Your Angostura is there, it's present. It's not overbearing. It's not in your face, right? Angostura is one of those flavors that can really be shocking to the senses if it's heavily used, right? But here it just floats around in the background and really pushes your dram forward, so those baking spices and those big, bright, bold flavors come in and push through. And then the bourbon is very subtle, right? It's subtle. The heat is there though from our bourbon. The sour is there. It's all very well balanced. Ladies and gentlemen, the lion's tail, That is such a good cocktail. That's a classic Prohibition style. If you're into the Prohibition style cocktails, the Bee's Knees, I believe the Bijou was one of those. If you're into cocktails like that, check this out. If you've never tried a Lion's Tail, especially if you love tiki drinks, if you're into tiki cocktails, but you're also into Prohibition whiskey cocktails, you need to check this out because it's so good. It's so delicate, but it's packed full of flavor. It's like a different evolution of a whiskey sour. I could totally see throwing an egg white in there, dry shake, throw in some ice, shake again, pour it out into a chilled coupe. Oh, it would be phenomenal. This is absolutely another layer of classic cocktail. And I think that this, if you can get your hands on some Allspice Dram, it needs to be in everybody's recipe book because it's absolutely phenomenal. It's a shame that this was lost to time, and I'm glad that it has kind of made a resurgence. So anyway, thank you all so very much. Remember, please don't drink and drive. Please drink responsibly. For us right now, it's raining, it's gross, it's miserable outside, and please tip your bartenders. Until the next time, thank you all so very much. Remember, please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the things that YouTube asks you to do to help me keep growing. Anyway, thank you all so much. We'll see you in the next video. Till then, cheers. Oh my God, that's good.